Hey guys, Wadsm here. So Nintendo just announced that there's gonna be a new patch tomorrow and they just released the patch notes for it tonight. So I just wanted to go quickly over the patch notes and give my thoughts and just show you why I think this patch is one of the better ones they released lately, so yeah, let's dig into that. Okay, first of all we're starting off with the main weapons, so first we got the Splatoon, which was never in a good spot anyway, and they basically changed that it just paints better while turfing beneath it, and they also increased its damage made to the Rainmaker shield, which are kind of insignificant changes, so the weapon won't go anywhere, I think. Next we have the Splattack Junior, which gets a pretty good buff, to be honest. Like having a 10% higher ink tank will help any weapon, but then again, Junior's not seeing any play at all, and they're just better support of weapons than it in the game anyway, so I think it won't go anywhere as well. Next we have the Splash-O-Matic, which is quite interesting since the Splash-O-Matic was actually being played as a Slayer weapon on some maps, just mainly because it's a pretty decent main weapon combined with a suction bomb rush, but they're actually buffing its main weapon, so they're actually buffing its accuracy while shooting mid-air, which will greatly help this weapon in 1v1s. And I mean, its kind of downside was always its mobility compared to other weapons in the game with the same role, like Emperor dualies at the moment, for example. So any buff to its main weapon will actually help the weapon. I think, yeah, maybe people will pick it up again and play it on more maps just to get that suction bomb rush in on Splatoon. So yeah, we will see about that. So next up we have the Arrow Spray MG, which basically only gets a paint buff. I mean, that's the whole gimmick of the weapon anime, that it paints amazing and it won't go anywhere in competitive play, to be honest. Unless they're gonna buff its special again, like they did back in the patch when Brella was OP, and this weapon will only be only viable when yeah, it's special gonna be OP. So because this weapon basically breeds specials, it gets it super fast because it paints super fast, but yeah, don't think it's gonna go anywhere. Next we have the Lunar Blaster, which gets an interesting buff, because Lunar Blaster, as you might remember, was a pretty strong weapon in Splatoon 1. It has never seen much play in Splatoon 2 though, but now they're actually buffing its accuracy while jumping mid-air. The thing is about blasters, every time they shoot mid-air they get this random RNG angle, and they're just decreasing that a little bit, so this basically grants Luna more mobility, since yeah, it can jump while shooting and hit their shots more reliably. That's a really good thing for Luna to have. But I don't see it being better than the normal blaster anyway, so while it's a nice buff, I don't think it will affect Luna that much. So next we have the L3 Nuzzle Nose. That's an interesting one, since an 11% move speed increase is always huge on any weapon. The L3 doesn't see much play, even though I think the L3 has one of the best sets in the game, or at least like burst ones and inkjet, you can never go wrong with that set. And I don't know, I mean, the set sounds scary itself, the weapon itself is not bad either, and with that buff maybe it's gonna see more play. I mean, H3 already, like, that's its twin weapon, H3 already sees much play, but maybe this buff will help L3 also being a viable niche weapon pick on competitive play. Talking about H3, H3 also gets some buffs. It, I mean, painting the wall better is like a quality of change buff, not really needed, but nice to have. And it also gets a change about, like, that's not a direct change of the weapon itself, but you're gonna hear different sounds once you one-clip people. Like, if you hit all your shots onto someone, you're gonna one-shot them, and that's gonna make a similar sound, I think, than it does when you one-shot people with blaster or something like that. So while the H3 Nuzzle Nose doesn't get buffed that much, it gets some quality of life changes. And since this weapon already sees a lot of play lately, I think it's just gonna stay in a strong spot in the meta. Next we have the Squeezer, which rapid fire mode gets activated 6 frames earlier when you just hold on set R. So yeah, this basically means you can defend yourself better from close range threats 6 frames faster, which is a quite it sounds minor, but we gotta see how this plays out. Like, Squeezer is one of those weapons which has a lot of potential, but it also has an insane skill cap. So it seems some play on some maps, especially on I think on Port, since it has Wall and Stingray, 2 good tools to have on Port Macro. But yeah, maybe it's gonna see more play after this tiny or maybe major buff. Yeah, we're gonna see about that. So next up we have basically all the rollers. Like, there's that one mechanic where when you just roll for a long time, your rolling speed gets increased, and at your max speed it's just gonna consume less ink. I mean, that sounds good on paper, especially because it consumes 33% less ink, but I mean, this technique never gets seen in any play anyway, so it won't help rollers at all. So yeah, rollers are still a bit of yeah, I mean, they're underplayed, but I mean, they got heavily, especially the Splat roller got heavily nerfed in one of the latest patches, and it hasn't recovered that well yet. It sees some play, to be honest, in Japan. Some people still play roller, but yeah, I don't think that change will change much about its current position in the meta. So it wouldn't be a Splatoon 2 patch without a buff to the Eliter, but every Eliter buff this far has been pretty minor, and this one is no exception. I mean, 50% damage increase to Rainmaker shield at full charge. It's such a minor change, it won't change anything. I mean, it's only one mode anyway and won't even help that much, so yeah. Hydra Splatling, on the other hand, is super scary. Like, it just increased its damage, and damage changes are always pretty scary. Like, it's gonna do, with full charge, gonna do 40 damage instead of 35. It's still a 3-shot, but the thing is, you're just gonna deal so much more damage. Like, with 2 shots you already have 80 damage in, and if they're weak at some extent, that's gonna already kill. So really need change here, and also the partial charge damage was also increased to 32 damage, which is always a 3-shot, still a 4-shot, but thing is, yeah, like I said, once the enemy touch your ink once, they're gonna be a 3-shot even with partial charging. That's gonna be super strong on Hydra. So Hydra already sees some play by some Splatling players, for example on Chalendorf. So yeah, gotta watch out for that Hydra Splatling. Next we have the Undercover Brella, which receives a really interesting change. Like, when I first read that, I thought this could be a change which actually brings this weapon to the into the meta. Thing is, Undercover Brella is kind of underrated, pun intended. But thing is, yeah, it has such a unique concept, and just just having that concept. I mean, the concept is that it can shield itself while actually dealing damage, so it can have its shield up while shooting. They buffed that aspect of the weapon, which I'm really excited about. I mean, its shield was so weak anyway. But now every time you kill someone, it actually recovers the shield, or even if you only get an assist, it's gonna recover the shield. I mean, the weapon hasn't been in a good spot anyway, but I felt like it saw an increase in play lately anyway, so maybe this will actually make it viable on some maps. I'm really excited to see what people can actually pull off with this weapon now. So, yeah, coming up next is, like, I would say the most anticipated nerf in this patch, which is of course the Rapid Blaster, which hasn't seen any nerf at all since Splatoon 2 came out. It has always been on the top of the meta anyway, been way more stronger lately as well. So it always got better despite never being changed as drastically. But now they're gonna decrease the range of the explosion it makes by 6%. We gotta see how this plays out, but any nerf to the weapon is welcomed, I would say. I don't want them to nerf it to the ground like they did with Tri-Slasher back in the day. So I'm kind of glad they taking a bit more of a conservative approach, a slow approach with it, so it doesn't follow the meta. I think it won't follow the meta, but maybe it's gonna be a bit less strong, and that's what a weapon needs, in my opinion. Coming up, we have the ballpoint Splatling. I mean, if you saw my last video onto it, I already called it's gonna be nerfed, and yeah, that's the first patch alpha it got released, and there we have the first nerf, and they decrease its charge speed in air by 33%, so that's a start. I mean, the weapon is super hard to play anyway, and I mean, it just has too many gimmicks, so just starting nerfing somewhere is, I think, the best approach to balance this Splatling well. So yeah, good approach, nothing too drastic. Again, like thing is, they really learned with past patches that they shouldn't just nerf all those OP weapons to the ground. Like I already mentioned, Tri-Slasher back in the day, it got nerfed to the ground, where it basically went from like 25% usage in all matches to basically 0. That's how hard to nerf it, and I really like their current approach, that they just don't take away all of the good aspects of strong weapon and just, yeah, take a slow approach. It's a really good thing to have, because I don't want all of these weapons, which are already getting played, nerfed that much they're basically unplayable. That's not what balancing should aim for. So I'm quite glad about the approach they take nowadays. So the last change we have for main weapons is the Dually Squelcher. I mean, they buffed this weapon so much over the last few patches, and it's in a good spot right now. I wouldn't say it's too strong, but they decided to nerf it in a sense, since they increased the ink consumption when shooting by 20%. I mean, this is gonna hurt the weapon. I don't think it's gonna drop as much, but I didn't think this change was necessary. Not until now. Like, people still need to explore this weapon to bring it to its full potential, but we'll see how this change will affect the weapon. Yeah, that's it for the main weapons. Next we have the sub-weapons, where they only have 2 changes. So first of all, they change the velocity. That's how fast the sub-weapon travels in air of the point sensor. They increase it by roughly 21%, and they also increase its flight range, so its overall range. I mean, point sensors, I think, was always in a pretty underrated spot. I mean, it has so much potential, it just doesn't have a super strong main weapon, which has point sensor as a sub, but like, they've been buffing point sensors so much lately, and just stacking some sub power up on point sensors is super strong. I can see maybe it's getting more play, but I mean, point sensors always sounded great on paper and haven't seen any play at all, but I still think people sleep on it, so we will see what this change will bring to the weapon. And for the second sub-weapon, we have an interesting change to the auto bomb. I mean, there's an amazing buff that they change its ink consumption from 70% to 55%. That's huge. Like, if you just stack a bit of sub power up, you will be able to throw 2 auto bombs at the same time. So you're basically like a chicken breeder if you do so. And it's super strong. Like, just imagine 2 chickens just following you. That's an insane amount of pressure. But I mean, this is super strong buff, and they realized that, and also nerfed it in other aspects. Like, they shortened the maximum tracking time by 1.5 seconds. That's reasonable for such a big buff, and also its explosion range got reduced by 7%. I mean, its explosion rate was already the smallest out of any bombs anyway, but I mean that's a justified nerf if they gonna decide to drastically decrease its in consumption. So interesting change. It's gonna change how Auto Bomb's gonna be played. So I'm really looking forward to what people can do with that double Auto Bomb builds, and they're gonna be interesting. Last but not least, we have the specials. Which I'm gonna save the biggest change for last. So yeah, let's talk about Splashdown first. I mean, Splashdown is kind of dead, except on maybe 1 or 2 maps like the refrets occasionally getting played. But then again, some people just decide to run inkjet over it as well. So, but Splashdown, I mean, since they changed, you can kill it easier mid-air. Yeah, it's not getting seen any play at all. So this time they decide to buff it and increase its painting radius when landing. I mean, that's more often quality of life change. It's gonna help it as much, so Splashdown still in the same spot. Inkjet, I mean, Inkjet kind of deserves a nerf. They haven't changed the inkjet itself, they only are changing the marker, which marks where you're gonna land, and they attach a timer onto it, so people will have a way easier time to actually kill you. So you gotta be more careful where you use it, but the overall strength is still the same with inkjet, which is kind of a bummer to me. I mean, they could have just changed it a little bit, nerfed it a little bit. I mean, I guess it deserves more of a change, but we gotta hope for future patches to do so. So for the last special we have Tenta Missiles. I mean, Tenta Missiles have always been in a pretty interesting spot. It has always been the lowest of low tiers special wise, so it has never seen any play. Even though it's kind of on paper it sounds really interesting and strong, but for some reason it has never seen any play. And they decided to buff it again. I mean, they buffed it quite heavily over the last few patches anyway, but this time you can get all 10 missiles out even if you only mark one opponent. That's super huge, so it will always have its maximum potential even though you don't mark all opponents. It's a really good buff. Also, they also do that for if you target 2 people, then it's gonna be, of course, 5 missiles per target, so still 10 missiles overall. Also, you can target the Rainmaker shield now, so it's an interesting tool to actually pressure the Rainmaker in them once you push. So that's also like this just gives the specials more tools and options to choose from, and more options is always better. I mean, of course, since you can damage the Rainmaker shield, and it has always damaged the Rainmaker shield pretty significantly, they kind of reduce the damage to the Rainmaker shield by 50%. That's reasonable, but also I've read somewhere that I think the fire rate of the missiles got increased, so they're gonna come out faster, leaving you less vulnerable, because you're not as long in that vulnerable state. And also you can see now how many missiles will be fired onto someone once you lock onto them, and that's also a nice quality of life change. I mean, especially in a team environment, Tenta Missile is gonna be really scary. It's I mean, you can't forget about its like it can detect people through walls for like 15 seconds if you play it right. So if you just can call out good pushes and where people are, like Missile's gonna make your team's pushes so much more scary, since you know where the opponents are, you can pressure them from a safe distance. Interesting changes to Tenta Missiles. I mean, the last few changes to Tenta Missiles has also been pretty interesting, and people always call it to be finally viable, but it has never been. So I'm gonna be a bit like, I won't say it's gonna be meta or viable. I'm just excited that they buffed it again, because so many weapons in this game are just not viable because of Tenta Missiles, and I would gladly appreciate it finally making its step into the meta, especially as an Stingray counter and stuff such things like that. So yeah, super excited about that change. Now, there has been some bug fixes to ranked, to Salmon Run, and some other stuff as well, but I won't cover them. I've left the link of the patch notes in the description if you wanna check these out. The last thing I want to talk about are point adjustments for the special points weapons needs to get the special. I won't go over all the changes. I mean, I'm gonna show you a graphic in the video anyway, so you can just see the changes, but I just wanna talk about a few ones in here. Yeah, for example, Custom Blaster needing 10 more points. It's really good since Custom Blaster is still in a really strong spot, and just adjusting its point to get special is always a good start to nerf a weapon. I don't understand why they nerfed Clash Blaster though, that's kind of random. I mean, Rapid Blaster needing more points, that's good. Slosher, I mean, that's interesting, like Slosher and also like the Splat Dualies, I think, they both get their points increased because they have missiles. So Nintendo maybe knows that the missile change will hit harder than people think, and they're already preparing in advance that they don't that missile weapon won't be the next broken weapons, and already adjust them a little bit. So that's interesting. And yeah, Emperor Dualies also having their points increased is a good thing. And Dark Tetra Dualies as well. I mean, basically all Dualies, since Dualies have been on such a rise lately. Like, Dualies have seen so much play, especially in Japan, and Dualies have such high potential, and people are just starting to get there, and I mean, it's just justified that they nerf all those Dualies, at least a little bit, so yeah. Yeah, I've been talking for quite some time now, but that covers my thought about the recent patch. I think that's one of the better patches they put out lately, so really excited for that. So also let me know what you guys think about the patch in the comments. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, I hope you have a good one, and see you around. Wadsm out.